It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Please won't you be my neighbor? These are the words that millions of children would wake up to beginning in 1968 and lasting to this day. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was a classic hit, not only among children of all ages, but also adults. However, it wasn't just the catchy tunes or the puppets that brought back an audience time after time. It was Mr. Rogers himself. By the time that I was born, Mr. Rogers had already passed away. Nonetheless, I still remember watching reruns, and in a world full of crazy, he always made me feel safe and welcome. Today, let's bring back that amazing feeling that Rogers gave to each and every one of his viewers. First, we'll look at who Rogers really was by seeing his upbringing and young adult life that led to the creation of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Then we'll see his impact while he was alive. And finally, we'll look at how, though he has passed away, him and his show are still touching the hearts of people around the world. So let's start at the beginning, before Fred Rogers became Mr. Rogers, our favorite neighbor. On March 20th, 1928, in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, Fred McFeely Rogers was born. Now, Mr. Rogers wasn't always outgoing and willing to talk to any stranger he met on the street. In fact, the Fred Rogers Center describes his childhood as difficult for a time. They say that Fred was overweight, shy, and somewhat introverted. He was often homebound due to his childhood asthma. This made Fred spend a lot of time with his maternal grandfather where he sought guidance. Fred's grandfather was a kind and caring man who helped Fred become the kind and patient man that he became. By the time of high school, Fred had become much more confident, a straight-A student, and an amazing musician. After high school, according to Biography.com, Fred enrolled at Dartmouth College, where in 1951 he transferred over to Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida, where he graduated magna cum laude with a degree in musical composition. During his senior year of college, Fred visited his parents, where he discovered their newly bought television. He was instantly drawn to it. However, Fred wasn't drawn to the television with love. In an interview with CNN, Fred Rogers says, "I wanted to be a part of television because I hated it so. I knew that there had to be some way to use this amazing instrument to nurture those who would watch and listen." In 1951, Rogers joined the crew at WQED in Pittsburgh and became the co-producer of the Children's Corner, where his love for puppets he had acquired as a child was able to thrive. In 1962, the Presbyterian Church asked Fred to serve children and families through television. 6 years later, according to Biography.com, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood aired throughout most of the nation. Thus, the birth of one of television's most memorable programs arose. According to the Fred Rogers Center, a typical episode began with Mr. Rogers singing the show's theme song, "Won't You Be My Neighbor," and welcoming the audience into his television house. Rogers would then put on his cardigan, slip into sneakers, and sit down and explain the episode's topic. Then, through puppets like Daniel Tiger, X the Owl, and King Friday, and neighbors like Officer Clemens, Chef Brockett, and Mr. McFeely, Mr. Rogers would teach valuable life lessons. One lesson that Mr. Rogers was particularly fond of teaching was that feelings aren't an excuse for bad behavior. This lesson was showcased in 1969 when Rogers went before Congress in defense of CPB, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Funding was being threatened, and Rogers was shocked. His entire platform of teaching children was going to be taken away. For without funding from the federal government, Rogers wasn't able to air his program throughout the nation. During his speech, Senator Pastore interrupted to ask if Rogers was the host of his program, because Pastore was supposed to be a real tough guy, yet it was his first time in days having goosebumps. As Rogers continued, he recited some lyrics from a song about anger management on his program in order to establish the importance of it. The lyrics went, "I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish. I can stop, stop, stop anytime." And what a good feeling it is to know that these feelings are really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man. These lyrics are extremely important for they are what made Senator Pastore not only continue funding of public broadcasting, but also increase it to a total of $20 million. This is the reason that we still have public broadcasting today. While he was alive, Mr. Rogers was known for impacting anyone who crossed his path, from being his television neighbor to meeting him in person. There are hundreds of stories of exactly how Fred Rogers helped people, but today we're only going to look at a couple. First, Karen Bettenbow shared a story on Facebook about how her daughter was terrified of the bathroom drain and would, quote, run away as far as she could from the tub. However, when Mr. Rogers put on swimming trunks, hopped into the tub, and explained how no one could go down the drain, Karen's daughter was changed from the moment she saw the episode. She was no longer afraid. There are also a multitude of stories of people learning English through watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Through searching for Mr. Rogers' impact, one story that really stood out to me was one told by Mr. Rogers in an interview with John Donovan in 2001 for Nightline. Mr. Rogers was explaining how he receives letters from people in their 30s thanking him for helping them in a time of need. One letter was from a woman who was abused and raped as a child. She was thanking Mr. Rogers for helping her through this very difficult time. When she was being abused and raped, she would find her solace in a little room that had a television that would play Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. She said that she really believed it when Mr. Rogers would say, "I like you just the way you are." At first, she didn't even like herself that much, but throughout time, she really began to believe Mr. Rogers. This is the impact that Rogers had on people. He is definitely known to be one of the most kind and caring people to ever live. One of the most amazing facts about Mr. Rogers is that his entire adult life, he maintained the weight of 143 pounds. Why? Because it takes 1 letter to spell I, 4 letters to spell love, and 3 letters to spell you. On February 27, 2003, Mr. Rogers passed away in his home in Pittsburgh due to stomach cancer. However, his legacy lives on to this day. I have a little brother who's 2, and occasionally I'll watch TV with him. My favorite thing to play is reruns of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. However, Mr. Rogers does not only live on through reruns. In 2012, Fred Rogers Production released a brand new show called Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. I've sat down and seen a few episodes, and it continues to teach the lessons Mr. Rogers had taught us. Now, while it's no Mr. Rogers, it still somehow brings the amazing feeling that Mr. Rogers gave to us. Other than television, ways that Mr. Rogers can be seen is often at times of trouble or need. People ask themselves or the world, what would Mr. Rogers do, or what would he think? Parents who grew up with the program tried to pass down lessons that they had learned. In 2019, the feature film A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood was released. Tom Hanks was playing the role of Fred Rogers. While Hanks had never met Rogers, he imitated the role to a T. The film received positive ratings and reminded everyone of lessons that Mr. Rogers had taught us. The most important one, as Hanks states, is to be kind, and be kind. And in today's hectic world, this is something we all needed a reminder of. To all that knew Rogers before his passing, he made one final TV appearance. In this TV appearance, he reminded everyone of his impact throughout his life, his TV show, and even after his passing. I figure that it's best today if I leave you with what Mr. Rogers always wanted you to remember. Invariably, we end our little time together with a hug. I'm just so proud of all of you who have grown up with us, and I know that it's hard to look on to months and years ahead, but I would like to remind you of something that I often told you when you were much younger. I like you just the way you are. And what's more, I'm just so proud to know that you are letting the children of our lives know that you will do everything you can to keep them safe and properly teach them how to express their feelings. This will bring healing to so many different neighborhoods. I am just so happy to know that we're lifelong friends.